Here are the top stories for today, June 21, 2022. Boosting protection for the young, the Health Department gives its nod to the administering of first Pfizer booster COVID-19 jabs to the 12 to 17 age group. President-elect Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. takes on the task of being agriculture chief for now to confront issues such as food security and much-needed reforms in the sector. The Health Department allays fears amid an increase in COVID-19 cases, saying this does not automatically equate to a surge. And the EDSA Kamuning flyover southbound lane in Quezon City will be closed starting June 25 for repairs. Motorists are advised to take alternate routes. First in the news, the government may soon start administering first Pfizer COVID-19 jabs to teenagers. Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergeres said this came after Health Department Chief Francisco Duque III approved the recommendation of the Health Technology Assessment Council or HTAC on the measure. The DOH is now working on the guidelines for giving the shots to the 12 to 17 age group, which is expected to be released in the coming days. The government has achieved its target of fully vaccinating 70 million Filipinos against COVID-19, which include over 9.4 million Filipinos belonging to the 12 to 17 age group. The measure is also seen to beef up preparations for the proposed return of in-person classes for the next school year, which starts in August. The government is working non-stop to ensure that the minimum public health protocols are still being implemented throughout the country. In a Laging Handa press briefing, Interior Undersecretary Martin Dino said the country is still under a state of calamity due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Under Proclamation 1218, the validity of the state of calamity due to COVID-19 pandemic is until September 12, 2022. As such, Dino said the minimum health protocols must be strictly implemented to all 42,047 barangays in the country. As for Cebu, Dino said it is up to Malacanang to decide on the fate of Cebu over its defiance of the mask mandate. The province was earlier given by the Interior Department 3 days to align its executive order with the national government's policy.
Walang tigil ang ating mga barangay sa pagsita dahil unang-una, ang pinoproteksyon na natin ay buhay ng mga bawat Cebuano at bawat Pilipino. Yan ang ating pinatutupad. If you remember, na halos nagkaroon ng search dyan at pinadala pa nga natin ang ating kasundaluhan, ang ating kapulisan, at lahat na halos ng mga secretary ng kanya-kanyang departamento, even the DNR Secretary si Mato, Secretary Eduardo Anyo, kung natatandaan nyo, talagang binabaan namin per barangay dyan sa Cebu mismo. At ito naman yung ating kinatatakot, dahil sabi ko nga, nasa huli ang pagsisisi. Baka mamaya, pagka sumipa yan, hindi natin marireverse dahil buhay ng tao ang nakataya dyan.
To urgently address the looming food crisis in the country, President-elect Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. said he will temporarily head the Department of Agriculture. He said this is to ensure that more measures will be carried out more quickly. Among the priorities he cited are the need to increase rice production in the country, the reorganization of DA and its attached agencies, and the acceleration of issuance of national identification cards for faster aid distribution.
From the very beginning, I have always said that agriculture is going to be a critical and foundational part of our economic development or economic transformation, is what I'm calling it as we anticipate the post-pandemic economy. And as we slowly pull out of the post-pandemic economy, hopefully that will be soon. As to agriculture, I think that the problem is severe enough that I have decided to take on the portfolio of Secretary of Agriculture, at least for now. And at least until we can reorganize the Department of Agriculture in the way that it will make it ready for the next years to come. Marami tayong mga kailangang palitan, marami tayong mga medyo naging mga iba't ibang opisina na hindi na masyadong nagagamit o kailangan nang i-retool para sa post-pandemic. Dahil nga iba na yung ating ginagawa ngayon, bumabalik tayo or going back to basics. Ilang beses nyo na sa aking narinig ito, back to basics. We're going back to basics and trying, and we will rebuild the value chain of agriculture.
More cabinet officials will be named in the next 2 weeks. President-elect Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. said they are targeting to make the announcement before his inauguration on June 30. So far, the Marcos camp said they are still in the process of completing members of the cabinet.
The short lists are getting shorter. Let me put it that way. If we started with 10 names, a dozen names, we are down to maybe 3 or 2 in each of those departments. But we took it really department by department. Of course, health, and not to say that the Department of Health is unimportant, but we are coming around to that, and we are. I wouldn't be surprised if we'll have an appointee or a nominee within the next week or so. I really want to get as many of those done before the inauguration.
To increase taxes on mining, President-elect Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. wants the country to export partially processed ore instead of exporting raw ore. Marcos also emphasized the need to push for clean mining.
We have to view mining as a national treasure. The natural resources as a national treasure for which can help the Philippines a great deal. It is only up to us to ensure that the practices that are being that we see in the mining operations around the country are such that they're environmentally neutral. That instead of exporting raw ore, we export at least partially processed ore, so that may value added that's left here in the Philippines.
Remove taxes and other fees in fuel transactions. This is the appeal of Senator Aquilino Coco Pimentel III to the incoming Marcos administration. Pimentel said removing the excise tax and other fees on fuel will minimize the effects of surging prices of petroleum products. He said he will file a bill to formalize his request. Last week, re-elected Senator Sherwin Gatchalian said he supports additional fuel subsidies for the transport sector instead of removing the excise tax on oil products. Gatchalian said increasing the subsidies is more efficient and economical but should be distributed on time. Still ahead, no reason for alarm. The health department says there is no surge in COVID-19 cases despite an increase in infections. And Iloilo City is bent on reinforcing its battle against dengue in time for the rainy season. We'll be back after a quick break. Keep it here on the PNA Newsroom.
Pakiramdam ay hindi maganda. Sa matinding laban natin sa Coronavirus Disease 2019, sugpuin din natin ang pagkalat ng fake news. Huwag magbahagi ng impormasyon na hindi tiyak ang pinagmulan. I-check mabuti ang source ng balita. Kumuha lamang ng impormasyon mula sa mga official channel ng Department of Health. Huwag magpadala sa maling balita, basta't sama-sama at laging handa. Kaya natin to. Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
Despite the continued increase in COVID-19 cases, a health expert says the National Capital Region is less likely to move from low risk to moderate risk classification. Health Technical Advisory Group member Dr. Edsel Salvania said the Department of Health uses different parameters when determining classification transition. So far, there are no indications yet to escalate the current alert level. The Octa Research Group earlier said the NCR will be under a moderate threshold by next week.
I don't think so, no? Kasi malayo tayo dun sa parameters na ginagamit ng DOH in terms of moving from low risk to moderate risk. Isa dyan yung tinatawag na average daily attack rate na alam naman natin pag moderate risk, ang number that we usually quote is about 6 out of 100,000. Sa ngayon, it's just a little bit above 1 kung titingnan natin. Ang sabi nga ng WHO, we should be seeing about 800 plus cases per day in Metro Manila, in NCR, not nationwide, in NCR alone, for the next 2 weeks para mag-move tayo towards dun sa moderate risk classification.
Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere says despite the continued increase in COVID-19 cases in Metro Manila, this cannot be considered a surge. Vergere attributed the slight uptick to the entry of Omicron subvariants, increased mobility, and the waning immunity from those who already got COVID-19 jabs. Data from the Department of Health shows the country's daily average of COVID-19 cases went up by 82% from June 13 to 19. From 340 per day from June 6 to 12, the number of COVID-19 cases reached 436 daily from June 13 to 19. The latest case bulletin showed that there were 3,051 new cases in the recent week, 6 verified deaths, 15 cases of severe and critical infections, which went up to 554 from the previous week's 498. Only 14.6% of the intensive care unit beds are in use, and only 18.2% of non-ICU beds are utilized. Over 70 million individuals are fully vaccinated, and over 14 million got their booster dose as of June 19. Barangays in Iloilo Province joined hands to stop dengue as they kicked off the cleanup drive called Limpyo sa Hunyo 2022, Panglimpyo para sa Dengue Kagbaha last Friday. The provincial government hopes to continue its province-wide cleanup drive, which aims to stop not just the spread of dengue but also flooding. Governor Arthur Defensor Jr. said the solution in fighting dengue is to maintain cleanliness while following the 4 o'clock habit and practicing the 5S strategy. The 5S strategy consists of searching and destroying mosquito breeding locations, self-protection, seeking early consultation, and saying yes to fogging, plus adherence to safety and health protocols during the pandemic. This year, the dengue cases from January 1 to June 11 already reached 460 with 6 deaths. This is an increase of 165.9% from 173 cases, including 1 death for the same period last year. President-elect Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. said he wants Vice President and incoming Education Secretary Sara Duterte to look after the welfare of teachers. This came after Duterte revealed that Marcos instructed her to review the implementation of the country's K-12 program. Aside from ensuring that teachers receive fair salaries and benefits, he wants them to be provided skills training as well as supplies and equipment. Marcos said he also wanted Duterte to assess the current medium of instruction being used in schools. He said he is hopeful that the country's literacy rate would improve under his administration. Duterte earlier said she would prioritize giving students quality education and improving the living conditions of the teachers. The National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict, or NTF-ELCAC, is confident that Vice President-elect Sara Duterte is one with them in continuing the fight against insurgency. NTF-ELCAC spokesperson Lorraine Badoy said the country is assured that Duterte will neither collude with terrorist groups nor allow them to exploit children. She is also relieved that the incoming leaders of the country have made their position clear to destroy the CPP, NPA, and DF. She emphasized the need for national leaders to understand the danger brought about by the CPP, NPA, and DF and its allied legal organizations. Badoy thanked Duterte for committing to assisting the government in ending the theft of children by communist terrorist groups. More stories from the newsroom. Heads up motorists, the EDSA Kamuning flyover southbound lane is closed for a month for repairs. And national athletes who will win in major international events are in for more incentives through a trust fund to be created by the country's Olympic body. Details ahead. Stay with the PNA Newsroom.
Tandaan ang tamang paraan ng paghuhugas at paglilinis ng kamay upang makaiwas sa iba't ibang karamdaman. Basain ng tubig ang mga kamay at sabunin. Unang sabunin ang mga palad at ang likod ng mga kamay. Kuskusin na maigi ang pagitan ng mga daliri at maging ang mga kuko. Isunod ang pagitan ng mga hinlalaki at kuskusin ng paikot ang mga dulo ng mga daliri sa magkabilang palad. Banlawang mabuti ang mga kamay sa malinis na tubig at patuyuin ang mga kamay gamit ang single-use towel o air dryer. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito. Alamin kung paano ang tamang pagsusuot ng surgical mask. Una, hawakan ang mask sa strap at siguruhing natatakpan nito ang inyong bibig at ilong. Tandaan, ang may kulay na bahagi ng mask ang dapat nasa labas. Ito lamang ang tamang paraan ng pagsuot nito. Ihulma ang nose piece o maliit na metallic strip ayon sa hugis ng inyong ilong. Iwasan ang paghawak sa inyong ilong at bibig. Kung marumi na ang mask, hubarin ito gamit ang strap at itapon ito sa isang basurahan. Siguruhin ang maayos na paghuhugas ng kamay gamit ang sabon at tubig. Ang surgical mask ay dapat gamitin ng mga pasyenteng may sakit sa baga o mga taong mayroong ubo, sipon at lagnat, mga nag-aalaga sa mga may sakit, at mga healthcare at frontline workers. Maaari ring magsuot nito kung kayo ay pupunta sa matataong lugar. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
The southbound portion of EDSA Kamuning flyover will be closed for repairs that will last for a month starting June 25. The Metropolitan Manila Development Authority, or MMDA, says the closure will affect 3 lanes, including the EDSA bus carousel lane. MMDA Chair Romando Artes and Department of Public Works and Highways 2nd District Engineer Eduardo Santos inspected the flyover on Tuesday morning. Santos says the repairs that will cover the damage stretching to 30 meters have to be done manually without heavy equipment. Affected motorists and buses of the EDSA carousel have to use the service road. The MMDA and the DPWH also advise the use of mabuhay lanes and other alternate routes. A Saudi Airlines aircraft veered off the taxiway of the Ninoy Aquino International Airport on Monday. Saudia's flight SV-862 from Riyadh was en route to the Naiya Terminal 1 parking bay when its wheels got stuck at a grassy portion along the taxiway shortly before 2 p.m. Airport personnel were ordered to quickly tow the plane. No other flights were affected by the incident, while all 420 people on board, including 21 cabin crew, were unharmed. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania police say the shooting of lawyer John Albert Lailo was a case of mistaken identity. Philippine Consulate General in New York, El Mercato, said that based on reports by investigators, the gunman mistook Lailo's Uber vehicle for an identical car they were targeting. Philadelphia Mayor Jim Kenney condemned the tragic shooting, saying it was heinous and senseless. He also condemned the spread of guns in the streets and its consequences. Lailo and his mother, Leah, were on their way to the airport when they were fired upon. The lawyer suffered a bullet to the head, while his mother sustained wounds from the car's broken glass. Meanwhile, Lailo's family announced they will donate the lawyer's organs as a way to remember him. Some 89 residents from Piagapo, Lanao del Norte have finished elementary and high school through the government's Alternative Learning System, or ALS. The Army hopes the ALS will help improve literacy and stop recruitment by terrorist groups. Claire Gighe has the story.
Some 89 folks from the municipality of Piagapo in the province of Lanao del Sur graduated from the Alternative Learning System, or ALS, of the Department of Education through the Expanded Educational Program, or EEP, of the 51st Infantry Battalion. The graduates, 42 for the Basic Literacy Program, 34 for the Accreditation and Equivalency, or A&E Junior High School Program, and 13 for A&E Elementary Program, received their certificates of completion as they finally marched in a held graduation ceremony. Lieutenant Colonel Fernando Payapaya, commanding officer of the 51st Infantry Battalion, said they initiated the EEP primarily to thwart the recruitment of out-of-school youth by the terrorist group. The program also aims to contribute to improving literacy in their area of operation and provide a stepping stone to residents who were not able to pursue formal education due to some constraints.
Yung hopes ko na ipagpatuloy nila yung education na ito. After na ito, pwede na silang mag-advance towards next level of education kasi credited ito sa DepEd, no? Qualified sila to proceed. Nakandak na natin yung evaluation, and yet hindi sila makasama dito kung hindi sila pumasa sa validation.
Aslia Calandada, one of the ALS graduates, expressed her gratefulness to the implementers of the program. The 25-year-old completer said she stopped going to school to take good care of her family and that she cannot pursue formal education due to financial constraints. For her, the ALS program is an opportunity to continue her education, which she sees as very important.
Nagpapasalamat po kami kasi bigyan po nila kami ng chance mag-aral ulit. Malaking tulong po ang nakuha namin sa ALS dahil madadala namin to sa pang-araw-araw namin kabuhayan at sa future.
Meanwhile, Payapaya said he would recommend to his successor to continue the literacy program to help more residents. He also hopes that the completers would continue their studies and advance to the next level. Another batch of EEP ALS learners, this time from the municipality of Madalum in the same province, will also receive their certificate of completion within this month. For PNA Newsroom, Claire Gighe of the Philippine Information Agency, Lanao del Sur.
The Philippine Olympic Committee, or POC, will establish an exclusive special incentive trust fund for athletes who will win medals in the Southeast Asian Games, and the Olympics. POC President Abraham Bambol Tolentino announced the fund's creation after the committee awarded checks to 227 medalists in the 31st Southeast Asian Games held in Vietnam last May. The POC will initially use the 2 million pesos left from the 13 million pesos sourced from the committee's principal supporters, while all donations from other private corporations will automatically go to that incentive trust fund for athletes. Individual gold medalists will be receiving 100,000 pesos each. 30,000 pesos for silver medalists, and 10,000 pesos for bronze medalists. The trust fund is another milestone for Philippine sports aimed at motivating and inspiring the country's athletes. Let's take another look at today's biggest stories. Boosting protection for the young, the Health Department gives its nod to the administering of first Pfizer booster COVID-19 jabs to the 12 to 17 age group. President-elect Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. takes on the task of being agriculture chief for now to confront issues such as food security and much-needed reforms in the sector. The Health Department allays fears amid an increase in COVID-19 cases, saying this does not automatically equate to a surge. And the EDSA Kamuning flyover southbound lane in Quezon City will be closed starting June 25 for repairs. Motorists are advised to take alternate routes. As Filipinos, we all have a vital role to play in preventing the spread of COVID-19. So remember, wear your face masks and face shields, wash your hands often, practice safe physical distancing, go out only for essential reasons, and get vaccinated as soon as possible to protect ourselves, our families, and the community. Together, we can beat COVID-19. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. For more news content, check our webpage or log on to the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also watch us on PTV4. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know. From the PNA Newsroom, we tell stories that inspire change. I am William Theo. Good day, everyone.